So the next thing is to look at strings. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it string demos. And I'll open it with code. And we'll create a new file here. And I'm going to call this one Mutability demo. So what do we mean with that strings are immutable? Well, let's give this a try. We're going to say website is equal to http://www.python.org. We're just using this as an example of a string. And let's try to then say, oh, let me change this to, I'm going to rename this so it has .py at the end. If you don't put .py at the end, what ends up happening is it doesn't recognize that this is a Python file. So I'm going to try to change from -3 to the end to equal com. And then I'm going to hit Control F5 and run this. And we get an error. It says, type error, string object does not support item assignment. So right here on line 2, when we try to do this assignment to change the last 3 elements from org to com, it wouldn't let us do it. And that's what we mean by immutable. So how do we change a string? Well, we could do this. New website is equal to website, and we're going to take from the beginning to -3 plus, and then we'll concatenate on com. And let's see if we can print new website. And that works. So you can see we could, so this, why does this work? But when we try to say website of from -3 to the end equals com, why doesn't this work? Well, the reason is that, again, strings are immutable. We can't change. So this is actually the thing that's stored in memory, and this is basically pointing to that thing in memory. And when we try to do this and try to change a string that's in memory, since strings are immutable, we can't modify the existing string. Instead, what we have to do, and what we did here, is we basically made a brand new string by taking a portion of the old one, everything, up to here. We took all this, and then we concatenated with that, and new website is actually a brand new location memory with a brand new string. So it looks like it's the same thing, but actually this is making a new thing in memory. And then the old one is thrown away. Does it make a huge difference from a programming perspective? Not really. When you're doing your logic, if you do it this way, it will work, and it won't really make a lot of difference from a logic perspective, but it does consume a little bit more memory when you're trying to do a lot of changes with immutable objects. So often, if you're going to do a lot of manipulation, it's better to change things into a mutable type like a list, and then do your changes with that, and then convert them back into a string, than to do it this way. Usually, though, with strings and in Python, since we're not necessarily always going for the maximum speed application, or would use probably a language like C++ or something like that, we don't worry about it so much. But it's good to be aware of the fact that when they're talking about immutable, we're talking about an aspect that is very, low in the structure of Python. And but what you need to know as a Python programmer is just, hey, if I'm going to do a lot of changes, use a list. If I'm going to make it and then just use it multiple times, probably an immutable will actually be more efficient in those instances. So just to reference that, and of course with strings, we kind of have to use strings to do the things that strings do. So there's not really a lot of choices. But just to make you realize, if you need to modify a string, what you're really doing is kind of reconstructing a string and assign it back in. Now, one thing that you can do is, remember I said that the variable is really just a pointer. I can do this. And it's like, wait, didn't we modify the original? Well, realize the variable is really just a pointer to this thing over here that's in memory. So here, website's pointing to this initial string. And here, we're saying, hey, take the first part of website, add com, make a new thing. That will go in a new place in memory. And now, instead of pointing website to the old one, point website to the new one. So even though it's still the variable name website, it's pointing to a new thing in memory, which is our python.com. So that's another aspect, is you'll see variables shifting around what they're pointing at memory, and it looks like it's doing change, but what it's really doing is just pointing to a new thing in memory. And that's fine. It works to do what we need to do. We don't have to make a brand new variable, and we really want, and from a logical perspective, it's equivalent to what we're wanting to do, which is modify what website is pointing at. Thank you very much.